Welcome back to the channel. It is Saturday morning, March 8th, and it is time for some college basketball action. I've got a handful of picks that I have pulled off of this huge Saturday slate, so we're going to dive into those and talk about each of those picks just a little bit. But make sure that you check down into the pinned comment later on today. We're going to keep updating the Guy Boston website throughout the day as we find more plays. And if we put them in officially, it's going to go over there on the site. And if it's something that I didn't talk about in this video, I will have a little brief explanation as to why I am going to end up playing that play as well. So, like I said, make sure you check into that pinned comment throughout the day. You might check in the morning, and then you might check in the afternoon. There might be 2 or 3 more plays on there. So make sure that you check. We're going to keep updating it, like I said, throughout the day. But let's not waste any time. Make sure you hit that like button down below and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Let's go ahead and dive into the first play for today. We're going to be looking at Radford and High Point first off. They are tipping off at 12 o'clock noon Eastern time. And both of these teams are coming off of a back-to-back. Both of these teams are coming off of wins as well. Radford winners of 3 straight. High Point winners of 12 in a row, 14 of their last 15. We're going to be looking at the total in this one first and foremost, though. And I'm looking at the over, man, but, I pulled this up last night. I looked at all these picks last night, actually, before, obviously before I went to sleep, kind of gathered all of my data together. You wake up the next morning, obviously, odds start shifting a little bit. This total was sitting at 138.5 when I found this yesterday, and I was automatically looking at that over. And it has since gone up. I woke up this morning, was getting myself together, checked it out, 139.5. It's now sitting at 140.5. So we see that number continuing to rise, and I get it, man. High Point has a high-powered offense. They are sitting at 28th in terms of offensive rating when we look at it from a Ken Pom perspective. Looking at my notes here, I had covered head-to-head. They've covered this over, 4 of the last 5 times. That was when that line was sitting at 138.5, with it jumping up to 148 or 140.5. That now sits at 3 out of the last 5 times. Still a good number, still what we like to see. But really, for me, it's that high-powered offense, from High Point that has me leaning towards the over. But with that number creeping up, I wouldn't mind looking at this particularly from a parlay perspective. We could pop over here to Outlier. We could check out High Point on the money line. Like I said, they have been winners of their last 12 in a row, 14 of their last 15. They've just been on a roll. Whereas, Radford, you can't say much of the same. It's been 4 of their last 5 that they have won, but we see a lot more L's in the mix there as compared to High Point, right? And one of those losses definitely being to High Point on the road, a 76-58 loss. So, and High Point has just had their number over these last few years. They've won 6 straight now over Radford. So definitely like High Point to take this one here on the money line. Obviously, that number is super juiced at minus 278. But if we look at that and parlay that with an alternate over, I was looking at it originally at 138.5. But if we're going to parlay with the money line, we can drop that down even lower. We can look at it possibly at 134, 135.5, and potentially get this at plus money, combine that with the money line. So that might be the move on this one. Like I said, make sure you check down into that pinned comment, get over there to the Guy Boston website, because that's where all the final plays are going to live here today. Next up, I'm looking at another noon game, looking at that St. John and Marquette matchup. Look, I'm not going to dive too far into the side, but I am going to say that I am leaning Marquette on this one here, although this one is going to be a great game. If you're on the St. John side, man, I'm not going to try to talk you off of it. Like I said, I'm not going to lean too much into the spread here, or not going to talk too much about that one here. I'm going to talk about the total again on this one also. It's sitting at 144.5 right now, and I do like the under. I do. Look, both of these teams have capable offenses, right? Marquette sitting at 34th in terms of offensive rating. Ken Pom rankings. St. John's sitting at 71st. The thing about St. John's, man, is they play at such a crazy, just erratic pace. These dudes are up and down the court. They're pressing you most of the game. Their tempo is just insane. They're not the most efficient offense, though, and we see this as evidence in the last meeting between these two teams. Marquette actually held the lead at halftime. I think that it was 31-30 at halftime in this one. And then Marquette also held the lead with, about 5 minutes to play. And then they couldn't buy a field goal the rest of the game, right? St. John's, man, they didn't outshoot them. From deep, from the field, from the free throw line, none of that. They didn't really play a great, efficient game, especially from the offensive side of things. What they did do in that game was out-rebound Marquette. Marquette has struggled on the boards throughout the season. St. John's, kind of the complete opposite. They feast on the offensive glass. So all of that to say, I like the under, right? And the reason I do is that, like I said, St. John's just isn't that efficient of a team. When these two teams met the last time around, man, the final score ended up being 70-64, which lands us well below this number, right? And you got to take a couple things into consideration. It's the fact that these are two powerhouse defenses on top of things, right? They have great offenses. Marquette has a pretty damn good offense. St. John's has a proficient offense, ranking 71st in the nation, Ken Palm ranking wise. We're not going to say that you're great. We're not going to say that you're elite, but definitely proficient, right? They're not the team that they are if they're not proficient on the offensive side of things. But getting a little off track here. The thing about it is that these are powerhouses on the defensive side of things. Marquette is sitting at 20th in terms of defensive ratings for the Ken Palm rankings. St. John's is sitting at second. And it's really impressive when you consider the fact, like I said, that they play at such a erratic pace that they press you for the majority of the game. I mean, they press you a lot. To be sitting at second overall defensively is, like I said, pretty impressive in itself there. But it's really the efficiency thing for me, man. That's why I still like the under here. The combination of that and the defenses. In St. John's, they played on the road now 7 or 9 times throughout the year. They've hit to the under in 7 of those 9 games on the road. 3 of the last 4 head-to-head between these two teams as well has also hit to the under. And we can see over here off to the right on Outlier, both of these teams are also holding their opponents under 68 points per game, just under 66 points per game for St. John's and 67 points per game for Marquette. And if we look at these guys in their last 10, both of them, they've come underneath of this 144.5 line 70% of the time, both on the St. John's side and on the Marquette side. Marquette actually, 7 of their last 8 that we've seen them land underneath of this line. So overall, I definitely like this one. The total under 144.5, and we can get this for a good price too, minus 112 over there at DraftKings. Next up, we have a 3 p.m. matchup. We got the Liberty Flames taking on the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Now, I'm going to be looking at the total in this one as well. That total sitting at 143.5. I'm going to be taking a look at the under. Head-to-head, these two teams, they've only met 3 times so far, just starting back, just into 2024. Not a lot of history between these two teams, but so far, into 3 matchups, the under has hit 2 of those 3 times. Now, looking at these two teams from a Ken Palm perspective, Western Kentucky sitting at 219th overall offensively, right? 88th defensively. Liberty sitting at 127th overall offensively, 43 defensively. So both of these teams are hanging their hat on the defensive side of things. And then just to take that kind of a step further into a total perspective, looking at the numbers here, like the fact that Liberty's sitting at 270th 270. That's the number I'm trying to get out here. Sorry, guys. Words are hard sometimes. But yeah, they're sitting at 270th at in adjusted tempo. I'm having a hard time getting that one out today, right? But adjusted tempo is just basically that's possessions per 40 minutes. So basically a measure of pace, right? So Liberty playing at a slower pace, playing with a great defense on their side as well. So there's been 7 instances so far this season that both of these teams have gone into a game with 1 day of rest. This is going to be the 8th time for both of these teams. So far, the under has hit for both teams in 5 of those 7 games. And then just looking at that, that means that they're coming into this one with equal rest as well, right? In games with equal rest, Liberty has hit the under 11 of the 18 times that they played so far this season. Western Kentucky sitting at 13th out of the 20 games that they have gone into with equal rest as well. Let's jump back over here to Outlier for just a second. Let's look at that. Look at that right there. 62 points per game is all that Liberty is giving up. That is good for 9th in the nation. Holding opponents to just 40% from the field, 27% from 3. That is first. So, like I said, definitely a good defensive team. Both these teams, like I said, hanging in their hat on the defensive side of things. We check out this insight too from Outlier. We can see that the under has hit in 7 of the Liberty Flames' last 9 games as a favorite, which they are here as well. So yeah, overall, I like this one, guys. Under 143.5, sitting at -110 right now over there at FanDuel. All right, next up, looking at the Northwestern game, taking on Maryland. That's a 3 p.m. tip-off. We're going to be looking at two things in this one. First off, looking at the spread. The line's sitting at 10.5, man, and I think that's kind of a lot of points, man. And I understand, man, Maryland's been killing it, right? Maryland has definitely looked like an elite team. But 10.5 is still a lot to give up between these two teams specifically. And I think the injuries on the Northwestern side are playing into this one. We see that 2 of the 3 top scorers for them are out for the season. So I could see how that plays into it. Man, Northwestern has covered in 5 of the last 8 head-to-head between these two, and they've won straight up in 5 of the last 7, including earlier this year in a game that, yes, it did go to overtime, but it is a game that they did indeed pull out the victory. So, the head, man, they have played Maryland very tough, like I said, including this season. So, 10.5 points, man, it's pretty high. We look at this thing, look at it from a Ken Palm perspective, right? Let's look at the ratings. Maryland sitting at 33rd offensively, 8th defensively. Like I said, man, this is an elite team, okay? I'm understanding, but Northwestern, 62nd offensively, 44th defensively. It's not like they're this horrible team that's trailing far behind. You know what I mean? So that 10.5 points is a lot. It's a lot, right? So I'm going to jump over here to Outlier real quick. We can see in the last 10 games here. I mean, let's just look at this, right? Northwestern is staying with opponents, man. 100% of the time that they have covered that 10.5 point line. Let's look at Maryland. They have only covered that 10.5 points 2 of the last 10 times against USC and Iowa, right? These last 2 games here, 71-65 over Michigan, 68-64 over Penn State, 58-55 over a good Michigan State team, yes. But closer games, man. I mean, let's even look at them at home. It's still 50-50. It's not like that, we just see a lot of green over here on this side. But then let's look at Northwestern away, and it's still a lot of green on this side. They're still covering that line quite frequently. So I don't know, man. I like Northwestern with the points here. We can see as well this insight from Outlier that they are 10-4 against the spread in their last 14 games on the road. So I think it's Northwestern with the points here for me. And then I'd also be looking at the total in this one. Let's go ahead and take a look back here. I'm going to be looking at the over. It's hit in 4 of the last 5 head-to-head between these two teams, and we can see in the last 10 that Northwestern's hitting over this 140.5 line at a 60% rate, Maryland at a 70% rate. And let's just check out this insight from Outlier. We can see also, yeah, Northwestern has hit over this mark 16 of the last 19 games. So a good rate for us here. This 140.5 mark, we can see that they've hit at a 74% rate. So gotta like that a lot there. Then next up, I'm looking at that Ohio State Buckeye Indiana Hoosier game tipping off at 3:45 Eastern time. Indiana's won 4 straight now head-to-head, 5 of the last 6 matchups between these two. And if we look at them from a Ken Palm perspective, Ohio State actually does rank higher overall. They're sitting at 34th overall, 25th offensively and 50th defensively, while Indiana sits at 45th overall, 61st offensively, 46th defensively, so a slightly better defense. Ohio State does boast the better offense coming into this matchup here. Coming into this one, both teams kind of on a little bit of a different trajectory so far, or here lately rather. Ohio State sitting at 2-3 in their last 5, Indiana 4-2 in their last 6. But they are coming off a loss, and they are at home in this one. So I definitely like Indiana on this one here on the money line. And we can catch them right now on the money line. It's -140. It is creeping up. It was at -131, I think, last night when I looked. -140 now at FanDuel, so we want to hop on this one ASAP. Look, we can scroll over here and we can see, man, Indiana is 13-4 at home this year. Ohio State 4-6 on the road. Indiana's also 14-1 when they are favorites. They are 12-0 at home when they are favorites. Ohio State 4-7 as a dog this year, 2-6 on the road as dogs. So Definitely like Indiana at home in this one, guys. And then I mean we can look at this insight here from Outlier, and that just kind of further hammers that point in. The Buckeyes are 6-15 in their last 21 games as a dog. That's a 71% rate. So Indiana on the money line. That's the route for me. Minus 140 right now at FanDuel. Then I'm going to be looking at Texas A&M on the road taking on LSU. I'm looking at the total in this one sitting at 142.5. I'm going to be looking at the under in this one as well, man. The under is hitting 5 straight between these two head-to-head. And it's not that I don't think Texas A&M or A&M can get any points up on the board, because I do. They got the 40th ranked offense in terms of Ken Palm rankings, right? They're sitting at 10th defensively, 230th when we look at adjusted tempo. LSU sitting at 107 offensively, 62nd defensively. I do think that Texas A&M, I think they're going to be able to get some points up on the board. Yeah, I don't think LSU is going to be able to. They have not hit over 70 points now in the last 5 meetings. Those last 5 meetings that have gone on head-to-head between these two that have hit the under, LSU hasn't even broke 70 points in any of those 5 games. I see more of the same here in this one. Texas A&M also coming off of a win. They have hit the under in 13 of the last 20 instances of such. They are doing so here as well, coming into this one off of a win. I like the under, guys. Let's go ahead and pop over to Outlier. And that's these two head-to-head. Like I said, guys, they have hit 5 straight, right? And we can see that right here on Outlier. Well, we can see the last 3 specifically have come underneath of that 142.5 line. 2 of those 3 well under that line, including the matchup earlier this year in mid-January, landing at 125. So I like this one here. It's 142.5. You can get that at minus 105 on ESPN and BetMGM right now. Then last game I'm going to be looking at in this video is going to be the Xavier Musketeers taking on the Providence Friars. I got Xavier in this one, guys. Looking at the spread, it's sitting at 11.5, minus 11.5. Xavier, I might buy a point, man. I might get that one at 10.5 instead. I'm not sure yet. But Xavier, they've won straight up now, head-to-head between these two in 4 of the last 5, and they've covered in 3 of those last 4 meetings. They're sitting 42nd overall Ken Palm rankings, while Providence is sitting down at 96th. Xavier is 59th offensively, 40th defensively. Providence just 81st offensively and 142nd defensively. So Xavier, obviously, clearly the better team in this matchup here. Xavier also against the spread has fared better this season over Providence. Providence just 13-17 against the number. Xavier 17-13. Xavier's also 13-6 against the number as a favorite, 9-5 against the number when they are a favorite at home. Then we're going to be looking at this here. Let's look at them in their last 5, guys. Xavier, man, look, they've covered this 11.5 line in 4 of the last 5 games that they've played. You look at Providence there, and they have not in 3 of the last 5 that they have played. And we can look at this insight here from Outlier too real quick. We can see the Musketeers are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games at home. So definitely like that one as well. See over here those greens, right? 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games when playing at home. So I like this, guys. It's 11.5 at minus 105 on ESPN Bet. Like I said, though, we might buy that one down, man. We can get that at minus 10.5, and it's not super juice. Still sitting good at minus 125. So that might be the route that we go with this one here. All in all, just like every other play here, make sure that you check back into the pinned comment later on today and throughout the day, man. I'll keep updating it throughout the day as I find more plays. Because this here, right, this only gets us through the 4 o'clock games. We just went over all those games. We're sitting at about 20 minutes on the video here, and we're only through the 4 o'clock games. That's the beauty of a Saturday college basketball slate. But there's probably still 40 games left on the slate to go over just from 4 o'clock till the end of the day. So I will dive into those as the day goes on. I've got kids, man, so I'm here and there, right? I'm everywhere, but constantly looking at the phone, checking things out here and there when I got some time. And like I said, man, more plays will be up. And make sure that you check it out for the final plays and how we are rolling. Guys, if you enjoyed the video today, you found the content helpful and useful in any kind of way, please do not forget to smash that like button down below and hit subscribe. It helps us out a ton over here on the channel. We greatly appreciate it. And that's going to do it, man. I will see you guys tomorrow. We'll recap how today went. We'll dive into Sunday's action. Have a good one.